Cool. All right. So it's been a while since we've done this.
Yes,
but wanted to kind of give everyone an update since the last time we put a video out there, and quite a bit has changed in that time. So in that time, Ada has officially become his own agent. So he's now his own associate and operating and really carrying the bulk of the brokerage business right now as we continue to funnel leads into the brokerage, mostly on the land development side. So that's particularly what we're going to be talking about today, is land development as opposed to more in-place assets. And we're now here based out of Ybor City, Florida at Industrious is where this is being recorded and filmed today. And could be more excited to see where this is going to go in the beginning to the end of the year. So Ada, why don't you go ahead and kind of kick it off?
Yeah, so like you said, it's kind of long overdue for me being my own associate. It feels nice. Now it's under Hanco and Associates. Everything's moving in the right direction. So I can be happier that at least. And now I'm much more closer to you. We're filming out at Industrious in Ybor right now, so it's a pretty nice office. I'm really liking it. From the transition from Keller Williams over to for you Third Leg, and then for me going on to Hanco, it's kind of been like a weird transition at first. At first I was mostly just working out of my home or different co-working spaces, but now that we actually have a space here at Industrious, it feels
much
better. So, but yeah, to start off.
And so you brought up a couple things I totally skipped over just because it's been so long since we've recorded, but
right.
We left St. Petersburg at Keller Williams and we're now based out of basically downtown Tampa, doing Hanco and Associates, which, just a little bit of a backstory, Hanco and Associates was the name of the heating and electric company that my grandfather started, which has been one of the most successful people in my family. Really kind of set a good example for that, and kind of wanted to bring back that legacy. And we're very legacy oriented in what we're trying to do, and really want to lay the foundation and groundwork for the next generation, and kind of like Ed Milet always talks about, be the one in your family that completely changes the direction that everybody downstream can point to and be like, the sacrifices and everything that person did is why they are where they are. So that's very important, I think, to both of us. And you wanting to invest with your brother, I wanting to invest with my brother, is kind of what a lot of that comes down to. But there's a little bit of backstory there. So when you hear Hanco and Associates, that is now our own real estate brokerage, and we're gearing it mostly towards land development. So okay, sorry, I just want to get a little bit of backstory there.
No, that's good. Yeah. So for the interesting market news and current events, I put the Florida legislator amends Live Local Act land use provisions. So the Live Local Act started back in 2023, and then now they just recently amended it. It said the major changes include provisions that limit a local's government ability to restrict the floor area ratio, the FAR, clarified that the height and the density maximums do not include bonuses, mandate a 20% parking reduction near transit, and modify the maximum height when adjusted to single-family residential uses under certain circumstances. So I believe before, I put here in right above it that 40% of residential units in the proposed multifamily development will, for a period at a time for at least 30 years, be affordable to individuals making up to 120%. I think that one was a part of the original amendment, but now the major changes was just for the floor area ratio, to my knowledge.
Yeah, so I know a lot of developers in Florida are kind of looking at this saying, oh wow, well I can get a lot more density in an area that might not have worked before. And that's also got a lot of sellers saying, oh, well, this could be live local, this could be live local, this could be live local. And everybody's trying to pitch a live local deal because they think they can get 60 units an acre or something crazy like that. Because it's within a 1 mile radius, I believe, that you can automatically assume the highest level of density provided within that jurisdiction. So We've got people that have lots kind of out in the middle of somewhere that rents really aren't that high. And typically you need rents to be like above $1.80, $1.85 in an area to justify doing the development when you're trying to hit certain return thresholds that are standard for the industry. And a lot of people just don't factor in a lot of the expenses that come with doing a ground up development. So this one's kind of interesting. I think...
Yeah, I feel like on paper it sounds very attractive, but then when it actually comes down to it, I mean...
Yeah.
With the whole 40% like must be for affordable housing, I don't even know how. Do you know how that would really work? Would they just like section off like a portion of the apartment complex to?
Yeah, you would just give them additional incentives to move in there or something. But really, what it's talking about with 120% of the average median income. So if the average median income in the area is $50,000 and you're at 120% of that, then that's basically making up to 120%. So if they make up to $60,000, then that people making below that threshold then kind of qualify towards that thing. And so you get density bonuses for that. And sometimes that can work, sometimes it doesn't, because if you need somebody to be making more like 160% of the AMI in order to get your project to work just where costs and insurance rates are at now. That's something to keep in mind. But that is interesting about the update with the FAR, because if you're going to have that footprint and the square footage necessary, you need a lot more density. So that's good. I know that the group family office that I'm working with now, they have attorneys they specifically work with that handle most of that stuff. And for most of what you and I are doing on the brokerage side as land acquisitionists, we're going out, sourcing the deals, putting those deals in the language that developers are going to want to see, and then kind of pairing a seller and a buyer together for whatever reason, for what the seller believes it could be and what the buyer believes that site could be. And then that's where you get into the zoning and the future land use and all of that good stuff we're going to get into.
And I know you also wanted to talk about the what's going on with the NAR.
Oh, yeah. So, the National Association of Realtors had a settlement for $418 million where they're kind of paying out to sellers of real estate. And honestly, I just think this ruling is kind of... smoke and mirrors, really, because I don't think it's going to change a whole lot. At the end of the day, you've got people that do this for a full-time job and understand what they're doing and are going to be a good asset and resource for people that are looking to buy or sell their property. If they want to go and do a for sale by owner, by all means, go ahead and do it. But I don't think they really know the ins and outs of a contract. There's a lot that can go sideways if you haven't done this plenty of times before, have a mentor to have shown you how to do it. And most agents that are doing for sale by owner themselves, they're getting their own commission anyway. So it's like, doesn't even really matter for that. But there should be some level of professionalism. And I understand giving a little bit more power to sellers agents, I want to say. And, basically trying to have the buyer pay a buyer's agent commission when most buyers nowadays don't really have a lot of money to begin with. And so, that's going to put additional strain on the market there. They've got a bunch of other crazy stuff in the pipeline, and then also on transparency about marketing, what is the buyer's agent side commission. And so it's basically giving more leverage to the listing agent. Let's just say that the industry standard was 3% per side of the transaction, 6%, of the purchase price goes to the agents. Nowadays, it's more like 5. It's like 2.5, I want to say. Whereas if they don't have to have that level of transparency, they might be able to continue to try and reduce the buyer's agent commission. So it makes getting listings that much more important. Moving on from that, we got a couple other just general topics around development if you want to get into that.
Yeah, so throughout some conversations that I've been having with a few different land developers and like landowners throughout the whole southeast region of the United States, I've been getting a little bit more feedback. So these are some questions that relate to some of those prior conversations that I've been having. So with impact fees, I think we discussed impact fees a little before, but just kind of to regroup on it. So overall, what are impact fees? How do they change on a city by city basis? And then what are typically like the best sources to find what that city's impact fees are?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it definitely varies from city to city, county by county. Like in Lake County, Florida, I think the impact fees are higher from what I've been told. Again, like I don't do the analyst side of things when I'm going through and doing the underwritings. However, I am able to kind of pick up on what they're talking about and relay that over. But essentially an impact fee is when you're doing a new ground up development and you're bringing, let's just say it's a residential multifamily development of like 300 units. That's a lot of residents. You're impacting, let's just say, the watershed. You're going to have like more trash being generated from that. There's going to be an impact on the school system. Mm-hmm. There's going to be impact on the police system. So all of those are individual itemized things that are lumped into the total impact fee on a per unit basis. And so it can range from like 15 to like 20,000 per unit that you got to pay just for the impact fees on that. And that $5,000 difference right there, when you're talking about 300 units, is quite a bit of money. And that can kind of, be the difference between being able to make it happen and not making it happen. You're really, when you're doing the ground up developments, it's first and foremost, what are the rents? Like, what can I actually generate from this thing pro forma? And then you're also looking at the insurance rates. In Florida, the insurance rates continue to be high. The interest rates are also another factor when you have to go get a construction loan to do this thing. Most developers are closing on the property with cash and then they go get a construction loan. So there's that as well. And then, the impact fees can be another factor there for that. As far as changing on a city by city and a county by county basis, when you're on the border of the city or the county, the impact fees are going to be less when you're just within the county because you don't have to pay the city impact fees. However, there are advantages to being within the city that you don't get in the county, usually in the form of greater density, in the form of water and sewer connections. And when you're going to need a greater supply of water and sewer. For example, we were working on a deal up north and the county only has well and septic, whereas the city has city sewer. Mm-hmm. So you want the city and sewer to support the higher density. And when you can go from that change, you might go from, let's just say you're at like 4 units an acre to now you're at like 18 units an acre. And that allows you to maybe go from like, let's just say you can get $50,000 per unit. If you're at 4 units an acre, that's like $200,000 an acre. And let's just say you're at like $25,000 a door for a multifamily unit, but you're at 18 units a door. So, you can go from like $200,000 a unit to like $450,000 a unit.
Right.
And again, when we're talking about, or not a unit, an acre, but when you're talking about 17, 18 acres of land, that difference is in the millions. So it makes a lot of sense for somebody to actually go through that process of getting the land prepared, getting the zoning done, so that way you can accommodate the density that's needed to effectuate a massive development like that. And usually it helps to be within the city, although it does come with added impact fees.
Right. And the next topic that I wanted to go over was the new infrastructure that might be coming into a city that we're looking into. So the other day, actually, I was calling on, I believe it was in Edgewater, Florida, right by like Daytona, New Smyrna area. And one of the landowners there told me that there was like a new ramp or a new road that was being built in the area, so that's going to affect the amount of traffic that would be on the road that the subject property that I was interested in would be on. So
talking about like the AADT, which is like the average vehicles per day.
right, yeah. So he was saying that he would send me over, the concept of the new ramp that'd be putting into place. I think they're saying within this year that they're gonna start that construction. So I know you're not on the underwriting side of things, but when those like new constructions are going into place, that I'm assuming that does have a big factor in the underwriting process, and like how the difference in like the traffic will be, like the amount of people that will be able to go there, and like the amount of new people that will be coming in, and just like overall, how does that have like a change on looking at the property, or how attractive that the deal look at like after like new infrastructure is coming into?
Yeah, so I would say residential and retail, I mean, it's a full ecosystem. So when you have easier access to a potential area that you're looking to develop, that's going to help on your future rent side of things. And if the future rents go up, then that means you can cover your construction costs and kind of do nicer developments. And overall, like that'll help on the retail side of things. And then as the retail gets nicer, people want to live there more, so they're willing to pay more money. And then if they're paying more money, the rents go up, and then more developers are going to want to move into the area. So it just continues this like endless feedback loop. The easier it is to get access to. So yeah, there's that.
Right.
Yeah.
Moving on. So I mean, at the moment, both of us are making a decent amount of calls on different landowners throughout the state of Florida and throughout some different states in the southeast region. And one of the biggest things that I've been kind of like trying to focus on is building a trust with these buyers or with the owners. And sometimes it might be difficult because I'll be calling from like a 941 number, and they might be like in like Miami or something. So the question I had is like, what are some tactics that you've been using to build some trust with some of these landowners, and overall just not coming off as like someone that's not really like a local in that space, or might not know too much about that specific city?
Right. Yeah. So if it's your first time calling in a market, you're going to hit a few road bumps when you're trying to figure out these things, but you want to make yourself an expert as quickly as you can. And when you get somebody on the phone that's willing to divest that information, I mean, write all of that down and continue to use that in your conversations when you're calling the city or calling the county and you're trying to get information about the future land use. What is a permitted use? What is the floor area ratio? What is the max buildable height? All of those things matter in your underwriting, and if you can actually make the project happen. But knowing all of those things is going to help you build trust with the seller, because they're going to look to you as a source of information and an expert, and that's how you want to position yourself with them, regardless of really where you're coming from, but just initially getting them on the phone. When people see that I'm calling up north, out of state, and I'm calling with the 813 Tampa phone number, they probably think it's just another scam call, because we all get those calls. And so we're using a service now where we're able to call using a domestic phone number to the location that we're calling in. And while we're still testing this out, I think that it should help our conversion rates on that initial phone call by as much as like 30 to 40%.
I would say so. I only tried it within one sub-market so far, and I would say I was getting a decent amount of people answering. I mean, it really like varies on a day-to-day basis. Some days, as you know, like everyone might be answering. Other days, you'll be getting voicemails like all day. But
even when we were calling from St. Pete, and you grew up in Sarasota, and you were calling in Sarasota, you're like, dude, everybody's picking the phone up today. I mean, even when you're talking about neighboring cities that just have different phone codes, like you're going to get more people that pick up that area that they know. It's less likely to be somebody that's trying to waste their time. And that is certainly not what we do, because we're experts in what we do, and we're there to present them with an offer that they're probably not going to get as easily with as much little effort. I mean, we are bringing it to them, and then they can decide whether or not it makes sense for them to work with us.
Right.
So,
yeah. Well, I believe that was about it with the daily topics. Additional notes: we went over the new space at Industrious. Lately, we've been trying to go over some the underwriting for self-storage, and just digesting, or like navigating through like that whole thing, just because it is quite
Yeah, I mean, back of the napkin math that we are looking for when we go to hand this over to the analysts really is, does the square foot per capita in that region on a 3 to 5 mile radius actually make sense for us to go and build more of this here? Like, is there a real demand for that in that area? And then the second thing is, of course, rents. How are you going to build something when you can't even rent it out at a rate that makes sense? So having those comps are always a big thing. Those are going to be your two biggest factors. And other than that, if you can find out, is there any developments coming to town in the area that could deter a new developer like yourself from wanting to go there? Are there any projects that have been in development but just have never come to fruition for whatever reason? If it's a proposed project that hasn't had any dirt turned for the last 2-3 years, something's going on there, and that could actually be a buying opportunity for a developer. And so, kind of talking about KPIs, I mean, just this week you found 3 off-market deals that could potentially work for self-storage. And I mean, what have been some of the key takeaways for you in the last week, knowing everything that you want to look for in a potential deal?
Well, yeah, now I started to change it up a little bit. Before, I was just kind of picking on any vacant land that just kind of looked like it might be a good deal, and now it's like transitioning to just like making sure that like the zoning is what we want. Like the rents is the biggest thing. So having store track up while I'm looking at some of these sites, and just making sure like I'm in like the right, the rents are corresponding or like correlating to like what we're looking for. And then also just having to make sure that the land is still vacant. Sometimes I'll put a piece of land in the list that I need to call, and then I call them, and they're like, the guy's like, all right, this has already been developed for like the past year or something. So then just making sure everything is right before I get some of the owner information and calling them and everything. So, but yeah, I would say it's progressing slowly, but it is every day. It seems to be, I'm getting a little bit more, comfortable calling these people and just having the conversations and making sure that the deal is right. But I wanted, for the KPIs, I just want to go back to, tracking everything, because how Rob Deerdeck kind of goes into like into detail how like everything that he does on a day-to-day basis he tracks. So like when he looks back at it, he can say like, all right, I improved from last year by this much, or so on. So I just want to go back to tracking everything, and then like how many calls am I making, how many interactions am I having, how many of those interactions are going into the pipeline and going through the pipeline, and I just overall I want to start tracking it up a little bit more.
Yeah, so in the Fanatical Prospecting book that I'm reading now, he talks about, if you go to any professional sports league, whether it's Major League Baseball, basketball, football, and you go to the top guys and you ask them, what are your stats? Every single one of them is going to know exactly what their stats are, because high performers are all about optimizing their performance. And so that's what we do with platforms that manage our deal flow, like Pipedrive. And I mean, I can tell that I have over $700 million in the pipeline right now. And that's a big freaking number, but it takes a lot of contacts, a lot of calls, before you get even just 3 to 5% of that might actually end up coming out the other end of it as a deal under contract. So that's super important to manage. And what I really like about a platform like that as well is it gives you the deadlines necessary. And when you make a deadline, then you can immediately set a new deadline.
Right.
And it helps you move it along, from each step of the sale process. And that is critical. But making sure that you're not getting too caught up in other activities, for instance, like admin related activities that might not relate to income generating activities, and making sure that you don't have any red bubbles. So the red bubbles in the deals there are when you had a deadline due and like it didn't get done or whatever, and it's not always a big deal. It might be like follow up with Jeff, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna call Jeff, and then you call Jeff and then you go and check it off. But that's important, and then you can track all of your notes throughout the sales process there. So little gold nugget for you guys, Pipedrive is a great resource.
I've been loving it. I like Pipedrive a lot.
Yeah, and the calls are really the biggest thing, because you can't be choosy when you don't have a lot of options. And so the idea is to just get as many options as we can possibly get on the table, and then move from there. And you also aren't coming from a point of leverage in a negotiation when you only have 2 deals in the pipeline.
Right.
But if you have 40 deals in the pipeline and somebody is trying to play hardball, oh well, and you see if they come back around after the fact. So that's about what I got on KPIs.
That's about it. We do have to start wrapping this up here shortly. Quickly. I've been reading Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins lately, which is, I would say, helped with overall just mental toughness, just every day making sure that you're putting one foot in front of the other and just making sure that you're doing your daily goals and staying consistent with them. And, David goes into detail about like the journeys that he went through, all of his military background and the ultra marathon running, like all that stuff. So, and how that's shaped him into the man that he is today. And even at this point, he's reached a certain level of status or success, but he doesn't, let off the gas pedal. He's still, every day, he still attacks the day in and day out. So
jumping out of airplanes, putting out wild forest fires.
Right, yeah. So he might be, getting to an age that, some people might say it's dangerous, but in his mind, he's just getting started. And every day he's just trying to improve and be the best person or best version of himself as possible. So I really like that. So far it's been a really insightful read, I would say, and I'm almost done with it now, but he has some other books that I want to check out as well. And I know that you recently started Fanatical Prospecting. I read that last year, and I would say I got a lot out of it too, but how have you been liking it?
I like it better than I like Sales EQ.
Yeah.
I don't know. I probably should have read them back to back, but Sales EQ kind of helps you understand the psychology behind the conversation and really kind of helps you understand like what is sales for that interpersonal connection and everything else. But now reading about like Fanatical Prospecting is more tactical guidance for building up the pipeline, getting more things through to close, overcoming obstacles before they're even an obstacle. So that's key and critical, and just kind of talks about what do the high performers do, and then just model that. So we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to model that and continue to grow the brokerage business, and continue to set new goals and really grow it from here, because it's ground floor, but we have a particular niche that we're operating in right now in such a way that we could literally catapult this business to go from, we could 1000x this business in like overnight with one event. And that's really the exciting part about it. So we'll see as time continues to go on, and we just continue to hit the critical task list that we got to do every day to just inch that needle forward a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Every day, get a little bit better. All right. Well, I believe that's about it. right?
Yeah, that's it.
All right.
All right, well, good stuff.